So the entitlement crisis is really a crisis, a government crisis, where the government has made promises that it has no funds to pay. So it's basically, if you think about it, of revenue and expenses, it's where the promised expenses, the promised liabilities, far exceed the expected revenues. So here we're talking really in terms of the federal government, and you could really think about entitlement crisis beyond the federal government, because this is true of a lot of the state pension plans, a lot of on the state and local levels. So there's a much broader entitlement crisis, but the main one is in Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. So those three programs have a mechanism by which they tax people that are working today. They take that money and they pay out benefits to people who are retired or people who are poor today. So Medicare is off of general taxation, Medicaid is off the Medicaid tax, Medicare is off the Medicare tax, and Social Security is off the payroll tax. So these are taxes. Now, we can project, with mixed accuracy, but we can project fairly well, what is going to be the revenue going forward into the next 50 years, assuming a certain growth rate in the economy, a certain growth in employment, how much money we can expect to get. And then we can also estimate how many people are going to retire and what are their demands, and we can also make projections about life expectancy and about health and all this stuff. And we can make an estimate about what the expenses are going to be. And right now, if you do that exercise and you bring everything into today's dollars, so you discount it all back to today's dollars, depending on the many assumptions that need to be made, the liabilities exceed revenues by somewhere between, the numbers I've seen are $66 to $126 trillion. That's trillion with a T. So these are not numbers that can be easily raised. You can't solve them by raising taxes. You can't solve them by taxing the rich. There's just not enough wealth, right? So our economy, GDP-wise, is about a $14-15 trillion economy, right? So this could be anywhere between 4 to 5 to 7, 8, 9 times the size of our economy is the unfunded liabilities over the next 50 to 70 years. So that's the crisis. How do we make good on these promises we've made to people? Look, you can solve this. Social Security can be solved by raising the retirement age and increasing taxes. You can also solve it by mean testing it, right? You can only give money to people who really supposedly need it and not give money to wealthy people or people who've saved. So people who've saved, we're going to just tax you basically and give it to people who haven't saved. That's the bottom. That's what mean testing really means when it comes to Social Security. Medicare, you can mean test it again. You can penalize people who've been responsible, saved, created some wealth and put it aside, and you can give it only to those who haven't. So that's penalizing responsibility and rewarding irresponsibility. But you could also ration, right? You could also just say, we've got so many dollars, we're just not going to give you the health care, right? This is just what you have. And the same with Medicaid. You could ration Medicaid, although Medicaid, depending on your assumptions, again, explodes in terms of the amount of health care consumed by people qualifying for Medicaid, which is almost always increasing because they keep loosening the constraints on what Medicaid is going to be. So you can solve it in those ways, right? You can solve it from the perspective of statism and collectivism and altruism. You can keep the system as it is. But I believe that the real solution, the real problem here is a moral problem. The real problem is that these programs are wrong. They're immoral. They're a distortion of the role of government. So they're morally offensive because we're penalizing responsibility and rewarding irresponsibility. They're morally offensive because we're redistributing wealth. We're stealing wealth from young people and giving it to old people. Young people tend to be poor. We're taking money away from poor people. We're giving it to wealthier, retired people. But the whole idea of intergenerational or cross-generational wealth transfer is immoral. But the whole idea of wealth redistribution is immoral. It's wrong to take money from some people and give it to others. That's just morally offensive. politically, it's wrong because it's not the role of the government to do this. This has nothing to do with the protection of individual rights. Quite the contrary. This is a violation of individual rights. We're violating the rights of the people we're taking money away from. You can read on this blog a post that we had earlier, a few days ago, where we discussed that Social Security is not a saving plan. It's just redistribution of wealth. It's couched and we pretend that it's a saving plan, but it really isn't a saving plan. So it's morally wrong and it's politically wrong. It's not the role of government. So what do you do about it once you take that into account? Well, what you have to do about it is phase it out, is do away with all these programs. And there are a variety of different ways in which you do it. The first thing for Medicare, the first thing you have to do is move towards privatized healthcare so that you create a system of privatized healthcare so costs now are lowered dramatically. People can actually now afford insurance because of the status system we have today. People are really priced out of insurance because of the government has priced them out. So you have to first fix healthcare. Once you fix healthcare, you can create mechanisms by which you slowly reduce the amount of money given to Medicaid, and you phase it out. Let's say over 20 years, it goes to zero. Over 10 years, it goes to zero. Medicare, you do something similar. So people who are about to retire, they've been kind of promised it. You give them, I think I like the Paul Ryan plan, where you give them a lump sum and then they go and use it to buy insurance. So you give the lump sum to people who are close to retirement, but so if at 65, they get what they would get today. If they're 55, they get a small amount. If they're 20, they're going to get zero. So that within 2 generations, Medicare is gone. It just doesn't exist. But you're not giving health care. So the important thing is the government is not buying the health care. What you're doing is you're subsidizing individuals to go buy health care. That's how Medicare should evolve into, and then you phase it out. And you phase it out, at the very worst cases over 2 generations. Hopefully you can do it over 1 generation in less than 20 years. And Social Security, you can start shifting it to private accounts, and at the same time phase it out and privatize it. So you can get current beneficiaries. So if you're 65, okay, it's too late. You're getting what we promised you. But we're not going to index it to inflation, let's say, and we shift the retirement age to 70. I think all those are legitimate given life expectancy and so on. But then with younger people, you say you're only going to get 80%, and the 80% you're going to get is actually going to put into a private account. And if you're 20, it's again zero. So that within a generation or two, again, it doesn't exist. And it's not, I don't believe in forced saving, so it's not privatizing it. What you really want to do is eliminating forced saving altogether and tell the 20-year-old you're responsible for saving for yourself. Now, there are issues about funding all these programs and how we do that, but I don't think it's that hard. I think if we cut government spending the way I think we can cut government spending, I think that we don't have to raise taxes in order to keep these programs, phase them out. And in addition, I think the government could raise large amounts of money by just selling assets. Federal government owns, I don't know, 2/3 of the land west of Mississippi. That's worth something. I don't know how much, but it's worth something. Sell it and use that to help phase these programs out without raising any taxes, maybe even actually lowering taxes significantly. One thing that comes out in my answer to this question is the fact that there's a lot to be worked out here. So I'm just giving you a quick outline of how I would like to see it. But there's a lot of details that have to be worked. How do you do it? What amounts? How fast you phase it out? And I'm not suggesting that my answer here is a definitive answer to how to do it. This is real detailed work that has to happen. Maybe there's a quicker way to get rid of Social Security and Medicaid. Maybe there's a quicker way to privatize these things. So don't take this as it has to be 20 years, it has to be 40 years, and it has to be this particular way. But these are the kind of details that are complicated of how do we move from the statist mixed economy that we have today to laissez-faire free markets of the future.